Good evening, everyone. My name is Yap Chen, and I will be your host for tonight. On behalf of the JPO family, we'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone tuning in for tonight's broadcast. We hope that everyone is doing well and staying safe indoors. A friendly reminder to maintain good hygiene at all times and maintain social distancing when heading out. As we'd like to continue improving your experience with us, please help us achieve this by completing the poll that will be published during the broadcast. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A section down below. To anyone who is interested in sharing tonight's broadcast, a live feed will be shared on the GPO Facebook page, and a recording of the webinar will also be uploaded on the page. Tonight's seminar features Dr. Chen Zhangyi, with his topic being Chen Zhangyi, playing with sounds. As our GPO family attendees are mostly students ranging from primary school to college, their parents and their teachers, the sharing of knowledge and advice you have for all of us is invaluable and greatly appreciated. The JPO is very honored to have Dr. Chen Zhangyi join in as our guest for tonight. Now we'll talk a little bit about Dr. Chen Zhangyi. The music of Chen Zhangyi has been described by BBC Radio 3 as music from a voice of the future. Nature is often a source of inspiration in his instrumental composition, such as Vanda, Violin Concerto, and Raintree orchestral work. His dramatic works explore the musical representation of Singaporean culture, as shown in the daily themes of food, retail therapy, and caffeine in a Singapore trilogy, which is Laksa Cantata, Window Shopping, and Kopi for One. Zhangyi currently serves on the composition faculty of Yong Siu To Conservatory of National University of Singapore, where he had led the new music ensemble Opus Novus from 2016 to 2018. He also performs on the violin and viola with Red Dot Baroque. Now let us give Dr. Chen Zhangyi a warm welcome. Hi, Dr. Chen Zhangyi.
Hi everyone. Thanks for the intro.
Yes, welcome. So how are you?
Yeah, very well. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for, we're very thankful to have you here. Okay, so Dr. Chen Zhangyi, can you talk a little bit about the video that we watched at the beginning of the broadcast?
Sure. So Raintree, I played the third movement, the last movement of Raintree, this orchestra piece. It was actually premiered by Mr. Fu Seming, one of the previous speakers in this series. You know him very well. Your violin teacher, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I work with him quite a bit, and so this piece was actually premiered by the NUS, the National University of Singapore Orchestra, and it went on to be played by one of my school orchestra at Peabody Conservatory in Baltimore. Also, the Baltimore Symphony did a reading of it, and then I was very lucky. I entered a competition, and it was this competition that allowed composers to conduct their own pieces. So it was very interesting for the Japanese Composers Federation to organize this concert. So I was one of the 5 composers, conductors, and so we had the Tokyo Philharmonic was our orchestra. You can imagine. So that was a little bit of the history of this piece, and the third movement has this kind of rustling feeling of the leaves. You know, Raintree is very common in Singapore, Southeast Asia. Is actually the whole piece is based on a poem. So I like to write pieces based on local poems, based on nature. My violin concerto is about the national flower, is the orchid flower. It's called Vanda. So things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Is it a Singapore poem?
Yeah. The Raintree was a poem by a local poet. Yes.
Okay, I see. Okay. Okay. So how did you begin your musical journey?
I was when I was younger, in primary school, I was all into like painting and calligraphy, you know, Chinese ink painting and all that. And I was actually quite good for a 10-year-old. And then I picked up violin. And I joined the school choir in the secondary school. And then in junior college, something like high school, I also joined choir and the string ensemble. So that was kind of my growing up in the teenage years. I thought I was going to be a violinist. And yeah, and then after I did, we all have to do like 2 years of army. So after that, I when I applied to Yangsuto Conservatory, I applied for violin and composition, and I guess composition chose me instead of I chose composition. Yeah.
Ah, okay, I see. I was wondering why composition and contemporary music, especially like contemporary music.
Yeah, so it's just a something the path just kind of is unexpected. I always thought I was gonna be a violinist, like on I don't know, maybe join the Singapore Symphony, like Mr. Fu, or those are when I
Yeah.
was young, those were like my idols, and I looked up to them, and it's very nice to be working with work with orchestra, which I grew up listening to, and I know many of the musicians, so that's very nice. And then nowadays I branch out to writing operas and write for choirs and write for solo, all kinds of stuff, and it's all branch out. It all started with violin and eventually viola. Yeah.
Okay. So what are your experience in conducting contemporary music? Is that different from classical music?
Yes, a little bit. Because of usually newer music has like Stravinsky, Bartok onwards. Even
Yeah.
that is quite old, yeah. But from then onwards, the meter change and time signature changes are very common. So it happens a lot. It could be a change every bar. So it has to be like really accurate, and the the beats have to be really strong. Um, so that musicians, they know exactly where they are. So as opposed to if you play Brahms, or Beethoven, or even Mahler, there's some sense of you can expect where the beat is gonna be, usually. So conductors are not so clear sometimes. Intentionally, not that they cannot beat a clear beat. They just want the orchestra to create a certain type of sound. So that's the main difference between the actual beating, but understanding the music, pretty much the same. Just slightly different is the languages could be really different, like harmonies. Sometimes you don't know what the harmony is about. Sometimes you don't know how to make that sound. You have to it's easy these days. You just Google, and
Oh,
then you can find out how to create the special sound, the special they call it extended techniques nowadays.
yeah.
So like, yeah, back in the day, harmonic was an extended technique on the on the violin.
Yeah.
Nowadays, not so much. Right?
Mhm.
Pizzicato was an extended technique, but nowadays is normal. So it's all part of the learning process. So yeah, internet is very can find out a lot of things. Um, yeah, otherwise to me music, yeah, all different styles of music are all viable, and I I love Bach as much as Stravinsky, as much as other living composers.
Mm. Okay. Okay. So, how does knowing how to play the violin, viola, and also conducting help in composing?
Yeah, it helps a lot actually. If you, for example, if you write for the orchestra, um, more than half the musicians are string players. So it's tremendously helpful to know how bowings work, how there's different strings, even what the tunings are, what techniques are possible, what kind of sound they can make when they're tutti versus divisi. It all comes from understanding the how the orchestra works, or the instruments, or whatever sounds you're writing for works. So I was very lucky to have the experience of playing in orchestras. So it's a lot of fun, thinking from inside the orchestra, from the perspective of performers. So I'll give you an example. So like, let's say the piece I just wrote, that I just played for you, right? Raintree. The third movement has a lot of notes, right? So
Yeah.
instead of cramming all the notes in one page, I can space it out more and use a bigger font so that there are less notes on one page and it doesn't look so scary. If as opposed to like making the whole page so black and then people are just like, oh my, this is too hard. But there are some tricks like that, that plays with the perspective and the psychology of being a performer.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what it takes to be a composer and portfolio musician?
Yeah, to me, it's a lot of people like to pigeonhole people. So they think of me mostly as a composer, but then sometimes I do other stuff like play the viola or teach or give talks or something, right? What like what Andrew Filmer has talked about, what Mr. Fu has talked about, it all comes together. You have to be able to do many things in this age,
Yeah.
right, to survive. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, even technology, if you can, just record your own video and mix the sound by yourself, it really helps. So for me, I always like the idea of being a musician, not so much just a composer, because
Ah, okay.
yeah, yeah, because it you know actually being able to make a sound is so much being a part of being a musician. A lot of not a lot, some composers and conductors, I think they miss the ability or just the chance to being able to make a sound. Because we imagine sounds but not necessarily produce them.
Mm.
Conductors also don't produce any sounds unless it's like like Glenn Gu or something. They make a lot of noise. That's something else. But to be a musician is to make a sound on your own. So that's very special. And I sometimes after not playing, touching the violin or the keyboard of viola for many days or many weeks, I feel like it's I'm being separated from the reality of being a musician.
Oh, yeah.
So I try to keep it up. It's not easy, but I keep it. I try to keep it up. Try to play every once in a while.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. So you do play in gigs, right? Like sometimes. Do you do that?
Yeah, I play nowadays mostly thanks to my friends at Red Dot Baroque. Is this a rather new group
Mm.
focused on Baroque music in Singapore. We did some videos also with some friends from Malaysia. I
Mm.
think David Chin, the conductor of the Baroque Fest
Ah,
Malaysia.
yeah.
We did a video together about
Ah.
yeah, that's the telling story one. The kind of outreach for children's about Lully, the French
Oh,
conductor. The famous
yeah.
story about him using the stuff and then he poked himself and he died. So we made a video of that,
Oh,
and so yeah, it's a lot of fun.
yeah.
It's
Okay.
a lot of fun.
Oh, that is nice. And fun too. It sounds fun. Okay. What do you teach at the conservatory?
At my day job, the job that pays the bills,
Mm-hmm.
um, I mostly teach theory and composition.
Mm.
So it's for everyone, all the performers. singers, some composers, some recording students, recording artists, and we also have new majors, kind of like music and society and music and production. So those are degrees that majors that gear towards like education and also arts administration. So we have this range of students, and all of them has to take analysis and composition classes. It's kind of like theory and composition classes, and I'm kind of in charge of that, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. I get to analyze a lot of older music from the Renaissance, the medieval period, Monteverdi. I get to teach a Renaissance counterpoint. I get to teach Baroque counterpoint, how to write a fugue exposition, how to write a fugato, and then up to like Debussy and Stravinsky and beyond. So how do we look at those musics and see how it's being built and how does that contribute to the sound? And then the last question is so what? How does that connect to the playing? So that's the last connecting connection that usually should happen. Yeah, and yeah, so that's what I do mostly at the conservatory. You also mentioned I did some new music ensemble stuff. So it's not so much conducting as opposed to just organizing the concerts, organizing which students play which piece, and sometimes it's sourcing the right instruments. Sometimes we need this percussion instrument, and then I have to go find it or borrow it or steal it. No, not steal it, borrow it, and, or buy it. Yeah, so yeah, it was a lot of fun when I did it. I did it for about 2 years. I came back maybe 2015 to Singapore, and then 2016 I started to do a bit of the new music ensemble stuff, and then I ended end of 2018, and so and after that I had more time to focus on composing. Yeah.
Okay, so do you still play the instruments?
Yes, a little bit. As I mentioned, especially when there's a concert, with Red Dot Baroque, or there's there's a event that needs a violist or violinist, and it's not so difficult. Usually the viola parts not so difficult in the Baroque repertoire. The hardest probably is when actually me and my wife, we both play viola. Just before we came back to Singapore, we played the last Baroque concert with our friends, with Brandenburg Concerto No. 6. So it's for 2 solo violas, and that was one of the harder Baroque pieces for viola, and hoping to play with Andrew sometime in the film. Hopefully someday. Yeah, I know he wrote about it in his dissertation, and he even made a new version of that. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering if you do play the piano too.
I enough to demonstrate during class. Not good enough for performing. It's just useful for getting harmonies and checking notes and all and teaching. It's good enough for that. No, I wouldn't say I'm a pianist. It's just it's just enough, proficient enough to play a few notes.
Yeah. Okay. So what is your view or any advice for JPO on what they are doing, like normal orchestra activities, teaching outreach, music exam board, and this broadcast program.
Advice for JPO?
Yeah, advice or your view. Yes.
I saw some of the videos of JPO. It's I saw the one with the film score, the Pirates of the Caribbean. That one has a lot of views, yeah. Then I also saw there are some outdoor concerts. I saw the different groups playing together. I think that's all very nice. And of course, during the past 2 months, it was a bit hard, right? I think some of the previous guest speakers has talked about what to do and how to continue practicing.
Yeah.
So one of the articles online was in New York Times. It said is the spring is the season for solos, right? So a lot of people were stuck at home, so they made a lot of videos.
Yeah.
It's all solo pieces. So of course that is good in at any time. I think from my perspective, as a composer, how that helps in performance. I think it doesn't have to be so strictly about composition. For example, for me during the past 2 months, I I tried rearranging. You know, Raphael has a duet for violin and viola, right? So violin and cello. So I tried to rearrange it. So that kind of transcribed the cello part to viola as a way of learning the piece and also make a version that is playable in the future. So things like that. Arranging is kind of improvising, and arranging is like a nice way to get into composition if that's what you're interested in. I see a lot of my friends, Malaysian, Singaporeans, kind of just internationally. A lot of people are really talented at arranging. I never knew. A horn player, they rearranged the whole Bruckner symphony for 8 horns or 10 horns
Yeah.
and things like that, or 10 bassoons or 12 cellos. That's a really nice to see. So arranging, uh, for any ensemble or for yourself, with multi-track, those are kind of the things that seems really useful these days. I'm curious, is the movement control over already?
Not really, not entirely. Yeah. No. Like not really. Yeah.
So it's still partially restricted?
Yes. Yes.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I see. It's the same over here. We call it, we have a second phase two, where that up to 5 people can visit somebody. So that opens up to some sort of chamber music possibilities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, further advice for JPO members. I guess just taking the time to research on stuff. Research not in the super serious sense, but like what Mr. Fu said, what Andrew had mentioned. It's as simple as going to IMSLP, find the full score, read up a little bit about the history and context,
Yeah.
and then listen to a few recordings, and you realize a few hours has passed, and you learn something. Of course, it's not just surfing net aimlessly, but things like that to really keep people sane, and hopefully if you're working on a piece. Like I don't know, Beethoven string quartet, or you're working on a caprice or etude. Try different ways of practicing it. Make your own etude. I was just revisiting the Lalo Sinfonia Spagno. This bit that is really tricky, and I realized then I was starting to like transpose it to different keys and trying the same pattern through the scale. So things like that, simple improvisation stuff can really help the practicing, not just repeating the same notes over and over again. Of course, that we should all do slow practice, but
Yeah.
a little bit of transposition and playing with the patterns, playing with the sounds. Yeah, it's really helpful to kind of get the fingers comfortable. What, there's this famous story about I think it was Brahms and somebody, they went to a church or a concert hall. The piano was half a step or one whole step down.
Oh.
Then you can tune the violin half step down, right? But then
Mhm.
so he was like, no, no, don't do that. I will transpose the whole piece. So
Oh.
that's things like that makes it really like okay, what have we done with classical music? Why can't we do that these days? Of course, Brahms, Beethoven, all those people,
Yeah.
they wrote their own pieces, they played their own pieces, they
Mhm.
improvised their own cadenzas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that those are some ways to connect. Um, I think in a more kind of free way of creating music, not really not really strictly composing. You
Mhm.
know, improvising is like a live composing, right? You can just play around with the notes,
Mhm.
and then you play with one scale. Secondly, you try two chords,
Mhm.
like the adagio from the Brandenburg number 3. Try two chords and then you improvise some scales, some arpeggios. Then you try three chords and you end with a trill. That's a cadenza there. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I would say to the JPO members. Just have fun with making music. Really, you know, get to know your instrument, get to know the repertoire, and also beyond your own instrument, explore beyond your own instrument. Uh, try a second instrument if you can. Try learning a little bit of keyboard. Join a choir. Learn some foreign languages. It really helps. Yeah. Should
Mm.
we answer the questions?
Yes. Okay. So this one is from Andrew Filmer.
Andrew, hi.
So he asks us, for a young, I think it's uh for a young, I think it's you. For a young you, is there a target or landmark when one would be sure that one is meant for the life professional composer?
A young musician. For a young musician, is there a target or a landmark when you're sure you're
Yeah.
meant for the life of a professional? Oh, wow. Loaded question. Um, you'll know at some point. Um, actually, for me, it was after my undergraduate studies. Yeah. So during my I all my degrees were in composition, and I did also a master's in theory pedagogy, so teaching. Um, of course, I kept playing it, and I learned some conducting on the side. Um, so yes, yeah, you have to find your own kind of place. You have to you can't be like this kind of a stereotype composer, just stay at home, lock yourself up. You have to do that, but you can't be cut off from the public, basically the society. You have to have friends basically. Composers need to have a lot of friends, and then who are willing to ask you to, hey, can you arrange this for me? It all starts from there, right? Or can you have a small piece for me to play on my recital? It starts from friendship, and then when everyone kind of advance in terms of their careers, then you suddenly find your friends young when you're younger, they are at places where they can perform your music and all that. But even then, you can't really survive as a composer solely. That's why the need to be a portfolio musician. You have to do everything. You have to play, you have to teach, you have to write articles, you have to research, and be able to do arranging. Sometimes it's film, sometimes it's then nowadays increasingly you have to know how to mix your own recordings. You have to do all sorts of stuff. So there's no sure way to know, but it's more like a realization whether you think you can kind of make it. As a musician, I wouldn't say professional composer, that there's too few of the only composer without doing anything else. Yep. Shall we move on to the next question?
Yes. Okay, this one is from Anonymous. So, Dr. Chen, may I know, would you prefer to focus your compositions for the standards conventional orchestral instruments, or you would like to try something more modern, like electrical music instruments?
Yes. For me, just for practical reasons, I usually write for acoustic instruments, from chamber to singers to choirs to chamber orchestras. Yes. Yes, I sometimes I try different kind of instruments, like writing for Chinese instruments. Sometimes I write for electric guitar. There was a piece I wrote for Mr. Fu, electric violin and electric bass concerto, premiered by Remix. Yes, I am not the expert on electronic instruments, but I am working on it. Yeah, I think out of practicality, I'm trying to get into learn how to do sound design. Like sometimes in the operas we need like a lightning sound, we need a thunder sound. So I'm trying to learn how to do things like that. Yeah.
Okay. So another Anonymous. So, hi.
Okay.
May I know, if you want to be a composer, do you need to know all the technical stuff about each instrument? If so, would you like to share with us how you go about learning all these?
Yeah, ideally you want to know enough of each instrument so they can write effectively. So the go-to book is the orchestration books, Samuel Adler, and then if you write for Chinese instruments, there are a few books now out on the market. It's written by a Singaporean and Malaysian, actually, Chao Jun-yi and Wang Chen-wei. So it's about writing for Chinese instruments. And of course, there's a lot of resources online. If you go to Philharmonia Orchestra, the orchestra that was directed by Esa Salonen, there's a lot of resources on it. Like every instrument, they have a few videos showing you what this instrument can do, what is the range. So things like that. And if you write for singers, there are a lot of videos. The problem is there are too many videos, too much material online to find the suitable ones. But I would suggest if you're composing something, get your friends together, write for the instruments that you have friends for.
Yeah.
Ask them whether it's possible. Hey, can you try this? I wrote this chord. Is that possible on the guitar? I wrote this multiphonic. Is it possible on the saxophone, etc. So that's what I meant. You need to have your circle of friends to ask this kind of technical stuff. Especially if you're writing for them to perform, then they want to tell you, hey, my instrument can do this. Can you write something that involves this? Then it becomes a collaboration. So
Mm.
Andrew and I wrote a paper about this kind
Mhm.
of interaction between composer and performer. So that can be really interesting if you want to learn about the technical stuff as a composer, and then on the other side, as a performer, you want to have a composer friend write a piece for you. So that's what I would say for the technical stuff about instruments. Of course, not possible to learn all the instruments. You can learn about the instruments. Really hard to learn all the instruments,
Oh
but
yeah.
of course it's helpful. Yeah. How about the next one?
Okay, also from another anonymous. So not many people know how to prepare oneself if he or she is going to pursue composition. Would you mind telling us what are the basics and that we need?
Pursue composition.
Mm.
The basics is to be first be a musician. You have to play something. um, Ideally, because unless you write entirely for the electronic media, then you maybe not so practical or useful. But if you're intending to be a composer or arranger in the normal sense, you have to play something like a keyboard instrument or viola, violin, or oboe. It all helps, not just to become a composer. For you to become a musician, to become a conductor, to become a music educator, you need to be able to play something. So that is the basic, I think. Um, First, you need to have the mastery or proficiency of at least one instrument,
Mm-hmm.
and then understand what is it like to play music with other people,
Yeah.
chamber music, orchestra, choirs. Those are the basics, and of course, you have to be quite strong at theory, the usual,
Mm-hmm.
theory and music history basics. Those are the things that you need to know. Yeah. Not just Western music, just even musics from Asia and Southeast Asia.
Oh, yeah.
So those are the basics. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this one is from Chi Wei Wong. So,
Okay.
hi, Dr. Chen. As a Singaporean composer, how do you show the elements of Singaporean culture in your words?
Singaporean culture. Oh, to me, yeah. So that's what the maybe you've seen some of the slides before, right? Where the this trilogy poster came out, right? So I chose some, for those three operas, I chose some things that Singaporeans are obsessed about. We are obsessed about food. We are obsessed about shopping malls. So things like that. I chose maybe a bit superficial, but while using those things, we tell the story that we want. So what I mean is like I choose like the topic of the subject matter of coffee, then we're using coffee that use that as a metaphor for the character's life. So something like that could be done. And then shopping. So we chose the shoe to represent kind of this decisions in life, living in a city, a cosmopolitan city. We have all this, consumerism and materialism. So what is the then we use that to reflect on the meaning of life. So it's not really just showing the Singaporean culture. It is part of it, but we use that as kind of tools and a way to talk about tell stories basically. Yeah, kopi, laksa, we use the laksa and again as a metaphor for for these two characters, the guy and the girl. He uses laksa as a metaphor for his future wife. Really spicy, really kind of this this strong woman, but he wants to serve laksa at his wedding. So, having fun with that. Also, language-wise, use a bit of Singlish. I don't know if you're familiar with Singlish, but use a bit of these rhythms and inflections, melodic inflections of Singlish for the recitatives. So those are some ways that I have kind of incorporated Singaporean elements in the work. But a lot of these elements are quite universal, or we share with other countries, especially within Southeast Asia, definitely with Malaysia. Laksa. Okay, there are different kinds of laksa. Okay, right. But that's another possibility there. Yeah, you see. Okay.
Okay, so
We need to go to Q&A, right?
Yes. Wait, I want to ask one question. So
okay,
I'm just very curious because you need to have like a lot of connections, right? So are you friends with all the SSO musicians? I'm just very curious.
No, I'm not. Some of them were my teachers, or my friends' teachers, and then some of them, the younger ones, were my schoolmates, or they were students and young students, and then they went in the orchestra, and yeah, so not all. I don't know all everyone. I know some people. So yeah, that just because I grew up here, and yeah.
Okay, so move on to the Zoom Q&A. So
Okay. Yeah.
the anonymous attendee. So he asked like, we seldom hear from string players becoming composers, and it certainly is a breath of fresh air to the music community.
Nice quote.
As most contemporary composer, we know have strong keyboard backgrounds. Can you share with us if there's anything special and unusual you'd like to express and achieve in your works for the violin and other string instruments? What would be some of the works which
This question is for you, right?
I want to bring to the Malaysian audience?
As a string player, it's not that uncommon actually. Like Penderecki used to play violin. No, I mean, of course, most composers are kind of pianist background, right? So for me, I kind of playing and improvising on violin and viola, it makes it easy for me to like write like virtuoso works. So I've written quite a few pieces for violin competitions, and I've written one violin concerto and viola concerto, and violin, and as I mentioned, electric violin and electric bass. So many violin solos. So yeah, just because I can try it out myself. So that is the convenient part of being a string player. So for example, when I wrote my string quartet, I played out. This was actually in Penang when I met your father, 2008. Right, when I wrote my string quartet, I played on the violin, first violin part, second violin part, and then I tried the viola part, and I used the viola to play the cello, try out the cello part. Of course, there are some differences, but that is the convenience or the difference that for me as a string player compared to a pianist composer. yeah, I mean, I wish I was better at playing the piano. So, and all the other instruments. Yeah. So definitely the violin concerto someday, hopefully,
I
uh,
also
Yaksin will, yeah, bring to the Malaysian audience.
okay.
Next question.
Okay, so now I would like to ask something. So, Dr. Chen, I understand that apart from writing for large orchestras and operas, I often hear Mr. Fu mention you and that both of you have worked together many times before, even with remix. Can you tell us about some of the works, your works which remix have performed?
Yes, for Mr. Fu and remix, I've written some many arrangements actually. Most recently is this reduction of the full orchestra version of the help me what is that what did I do recently? Schindler's List, yes, Schindler's List, yes, I did the three, you know, the famous arrangement
Yeah.
for oyster, not oyster,
Uh,
Heifetz. Is it Heifetz? Oh, okay. Anyway, so reduce for remix.
mm,
So I did that the most recently. Before I arranged other songs, pop songs. You know, those are fun stuff. Like
yeah.
Beatles songs. I
Mhm.
arranged like Taiwanese pop songs from the 80s, maybe 70s or 80s. Old songs by Qi Yu, which become some kind of a violin and orchestra mini concerto almost. So those are some things that I've written. Usually too difficult for what it's supposed to be. So he always like, hey, can you rewrite this part? Not so high, maybe. No, of course he can play anything. Just that sometimes it's I you know I am too involved in making stuff difficult. So I'm working on writing simpler stuff these days.
Mm. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so next question from
Yeah.
Anonymous. Understand that you are a graduate from Singapore YST. Can you tell our audience more about studying music in Singapore?
Yes. For Young Sito, so as I mentioned, there are of course the usual orchestral majors, um, and then there's composition, and there is also the new majors. The recently introduced majors are music and society, and music and production, which are more for like arts administrative and kind of teaching. Maybe if doing those degrees, you can go into teaching or like arts administration. And we also working on the pedagogy components. Um, other than and all the instruments plus these two new majors, music production and music and society, we also have recording arts. So if you can play an instrument, doesn't matter what instrument, you just have to play an instrument, be a musician. You can apply, and then you have to be quite strong with the math and engineering part, physics. I guess it's for like sound and recording. So that is another major that is changed out quite a lot. That one actually 100% job guarantee. After they graduate, they started their own companies. They are hired by sound companies. So that is actually really popular. The recording arts major, and a lot of them come out as composers and arrangers and performers still. So those are some different areas that we take students for, and if you want to do double major, let's say at NUS, you want to do engineering and music, now it's possible. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Next one.
Okay. Um, from Anonymous again. So can you give some advice to new composers on the things that are able to do to keep up with their art? and to remain relevant to the changing music scene all over the world?
Definitely being able to use, programs like Logic and GarageBand, you know, you know, things like that. I'm not very good at. I kind of manage, but if you're good at that, you it saves a lot of time and effort. I wish I learned how to record also. How to place mics and all that. So those kind of extra skills for composers to kind of be relevant to the world. So I increasingly have friends who are in film. They make film or they make videos or they start a kind of advertising company. Those people need sound designers. They need composers as well. So if you can do that, you can use a sampling library. You arrange something, and then you don't need you don't need too many instruments. You can create a soundtrack. So those are really relevant, and every kind of production needs sound. So those are really the things I wish I'm better at that. Next question, cantata about Malaysia.
Yeah. So if you were to write a cantata about Malaysia, which food would you write about?
Oh, wow, this is tough. The obvious one is the kind of remake the laksa cantata to the Penang laksa. Uh, Other foods, well, there's too many. There's the bak kut teh that is slightly different from the Singapore one. There's a lot of similarity. Um, then the different char kway teow as well. What else? Yeah, I can't remember all the Malaysian food right now, but there's a lot of Peranakan food also, right? I think also tastes slightly different in Malaysia than in Singapore.
Yeah, have you tried the nasi lemak in Malaysia?
Nasi lemak, no. My colleague Adeline Wong is Malaysian from KL, and then every time I was like, "Hey, you wanna have nasi lemak?" She was like, "No way, I'm having nasi lemak in Singapore." She's like, "Okay, must be really really different in Malaysia." Yeah, because we have this nasi lemak store near in NUS on Clementi Road.
Yeah, the nasi lemak in KL is very, very spicy. The sambal is very, very spicy.
Okay. Well, that's some ideas there.
Yeah.
Good. Any
Okay.
other questions?
I think that is the last question. Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap this up. So on behalf of JPO, we would like to thank you for dedicating your time and energy into this interview, despite the pandemic that is happening right now. We would also like to thank everyone who has attended and supported this program. You guys have been great. I hope you guys got the answers you wanted. This broadcast will be on every Wednesday and Sunday night at the same time until further notice. Now I will end with prayer. Please pray in whatever faith you have, you believe in for the COVID-19. Dear Lord, thank you for giving us the opportunity to come together to continue running this program at a moment like this. I want to pray for the nurse and doctors from around the world who has been constantly treating patients with COVID-19. And I hope people who diagnosed with COVID-19 will get better soon. Lastly, I pray for our safety and health, and may the future there be peace within. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Okay, so thank you everyone for tuning in, and also thank you Dr. Chen Zhangyi for taking your time to share your story. See you all next time, bye.
Thank you, thanks for having me, bye.